Do you know what's happening after people click on your ads and get to your website? Are they converting? Well, that's digital marketing speak, but are they doing what you want them to do? Are they placing orders? Are they filling out forms, picking up the phone and calling you? That's where conversion tracking comes in. And so the purpose of this video I'm making here for you today is to give you a 101 kind of step-by-step walkthrough of what is Google Ads conversion tracking, how does it work, and what are the different methods available to you. And the reason this is so important is because if you're not able to, A, understand how your money is being spent or kind of what's coming from it after the money is spent, and B, if you're not able to get that data back into your Google Ads account to inform your bidding strategies, your optimizations of, hey, what keywords are working or aren't working, what campaigns are working, what ads are working. If you can't do that, then you can't make them better. You can't cut wasted ad spend for things that are not working, and you can't double down and put more fire on the things that are working. And that's why conversion tracking is so important. If you don't know who I am, my name is John, and I'm with Stub Group. We are a premier digital advertising agency. We help businesses dominate Google Ads and make money online. So let's dig into conversion tracking. All right, so first of all, what are the different types of conversion tracking you can use with Google Ads? So first we have website tracking. So this could be Google Analytics importing into Google Ads, which we'll talk about in a minute, or this can be you grabbing some tracking code from your website and installing that onto your, tracking code from your Google Ads account and installing that onto your website, whether that be across your entire website or on specific thank you pages, order confirmation pages, things like that. And we'll dig into more of that as well. So you've got website tracking, what's happening on your website, and then you've got phone call tracking. So when someone picks up the phone and calls you, there's actually ways that you can track that back to the Google advertising that generated those calls for you. And that's really, really important. And a lot of people don't realize it's an option. So we'll talk about that a lot as well. A third type of conversion tracking would be app tracking. Now, I'm not going to talk a lot about app tracking today because most businesses don't have apps. And if you don't have an app, then you have nothing to track in an app. But if you are a company that has your own app, you can set up app tracking. So you can, if you're running Google campaigns, for example, you can see how many people are installing your app after clicking on your ads, as well as other actions within your app, like signing up for free trials, signing up for paid accounts, things like that. And then the fourth type of conversion tracking you can use with Google Ads is offline conversion tracking. This is where you import data back into Google from your CRM, for example. Let's say you use HubSpot or Go High Level or Salesforce, something like that. Or let's say you are capturing information on your back end. You can even add that to spreadsheets and import that back into Google Ads. And I'll talk a lot more in detail about offline conversion tracking. All right, so number one, website tracking. Let's talk first about Google Analytics versus Google Ads. Should you use conversion tracking code you generate from within Google Ads, or should you just import data from Google Analytics into Google Ads? And it seems like that last option would be a lot easier. If you already have Google Analytics set up on your website, wouldn't you just want to import that data into Google Ads and be done with it? If it worked that easily, I would love that. But I would say that there's a couple reasons why you will often want to use Google Ads conversion tracking code directly from the platform. So let's dig into why. So for a very, very long time, up until relatively recently, there was a very big reason that I said, don't just rely on Google Analytics data importing into Google Ads. And that reason was that when Google did that import, they would only import data for conversions where Google Ads was the last click prior to that conversion. So let's say, for example, you're searching around, you want to order an umbrella. If you searched by an umbrella, clicked a Google ad, and then converted on the website, placed an order, Google Analytics would import that back over into your Google Ads account as a conversion. But let's say you did, buy umbrella, you clicked on an ad, got to the website, and then you said, I want to think about this. And you went somewhere else, and an hour later, you said, oh, I saw that on, fillintheblank.com. You type out that name, you click on their organic result, and then you go place an order. Well, in the old days, Google Analytics would not give Google Ads credit for that order. It wouldn't import that back in because organic was the last click. However, obviously, Google Ads should get credit for that order, at least some credit, because that person never would have known about that website if they hadn't clicked on an ad to begin with. And so that was one of the big reasons why I'd always say, don't just import Google Analytics data into Google Ads, instead use Google Ads conversion tracking data. Now, Google has changed that more recently with updates they've made to GA4, so that's not as much of an issue now. But GA4 in and of itself is, let's just say, far from a perfect tool. And very consistently, I see for our clients that GA4 underreports conversion data. So for example, we'll have both Google Ads conversion tracking code working on the website as well as GA4. So in theory, they should both match or pretty closely match. But pretty routinely, I see GA4 showing less data, less revenue, for example, than the Google Ads conversion tracking code does. So my recommendation is use Google Ads conversion tracking code as your primary, like, first source of truth. And in your Google Ads account, you have the ability to tell Google, hey, I want to track these as goals to optimize towards. Then it can be great to also import from Google Analytics into Google Ads, but usually we'll set those to, we call it secondary conversion actions. Not primary conversion actions, secondary, which means that you can look at data related to those conversions in the Google Ads account, but if you're using a bidding strategy like Target CPA, where you're actually basing your decisions upon conversions, you're not using those Google Analytics conversions as part of that decision-making process. To recap, yes, import from Google Analytics to Google Ads, but generally use it as secondary, and also use Google Ads conversion tracking code on your website. It requires some more work to set up, but it pays off in the long run. All right, so now let's talk about the types of actions that you might want to track on your website as conversion. So the big one for any e-commerce website is going to be orders. You want to know, does someone place an order through my website? And then equally as importantly, how much revenue is tied to that order? Because for most websites, you could have a $10 order, you could have a $1,000 order. There's a lot of different options. And so we don't want to just tell Google we had 10 orders yesterday. We want to tell Google we had $10,000 of revenue attributed across these 10 orders yesterday. And that revenue tracking side of things is really important, because if you're using a bidding strategy like target return on ad spend within Google, it's basing its decisions upon the revenue data you're feeding back into it. And so it needs to know, oh, this order was only worth $10. This order was worth $2,000. Let's see what was unique about the search for this order, and let's get more of these orders and not as many of these orders. So that's really important. So orders and the revenue associated with those orders is one thing that you can track in Google Ads. Next up, I'd say the most common website action people track would be form submissions. So it could be something like a contact form submission, it could be a free quote submission, it could be signing up for an email newsletter. Any situation where you're trying to get people to fill out a form, submit their information to your website, you should track that and track that in Google Ads if that's of value to you. So form submissions, very, very common. For most lead gen businesses, local service businesses, anywhere where you've got like a quote request type of thing going on, super, super important to track those as conversions. I'd say the third most common thing I see tracked would be chats. So you might have live chat on your website, and with a lot of live chat providers, you can set things up using Google Ads conversion tracking code to be able to see within Google Ads how many people who are clicking on your ads are starting chats, or sometimes even progressing through chats, even getting to the end of chats. It can get tricky. It really depends what chat provider you work with. Some provide more data than others, but often you can get at least some data tracked within your Google Ads account itself. And so that's helpful for e-commerce businesses, but I'd say really, really important for lead generation businesses, where that chat conversation might be the entire communication, where your chat team might be getting the phone number and email address of the person chatting in, and that's a lead now. So you want to track that just like you track a form submission through your website. So those are the most common things that you'll track through websites. It'll be orders, form submissions, chats. There are some other things as well that some advertisers might want to track. Sometimes page views, like, hey, they got to this particular page and viewed it, which indicates a level of interest, maybe a good signal that they might come back later in the future and convert. Sometimes people will optimize towards that. I would say most of the time we don't optimize towards that, because that's not an actual thing you can act upon. It's not an email address you can email, a phone number you can call. It's not money in your bank. But for some business models, especially for longer sales cycle business models, it might make sense to track page views for maybe a quote request form or kind of something down the funnel as a signal of interest. And then you can track pretty much everything. You can track, hey, somebody started watching a video. Again, you can track page views. Basically any interaction with your website you can track. But you want to focus on the ones that are important to you, that are ultimately a part of the process of getting money into your wallet. So that's website tracking. Now let's talk about phone call tracking. This is something a lot of advertisers don't realize that they can track the phone calls that are coming from their campaigns. It doesn't really make sense to them, because, hey, if someone clicks on an ad, they get to our website, they call. How do I know they came from the ad? How do you connect those data points? And this is something I love talking about because we've been in the call tracking space for many, many years. We work with one of the leading call tracking providers on behalf of our clients. And so here's what you can do. So let's say you're running a Google ad. You're running this ad on Google, and someone clicks on that ad. So when they click on it, there's actually a unique ID that Google adds to the URL when they click on that ad. It's called a Google Click ID. GCLID is the abbreviation. Often we'll call them GCLID just as an abbreviation, but Google Click ID is the phrase. And this is a unique ID. It's a bunch of letters, a bunch of numbers that basically, it's unique to that click. So it kind of encodes within it all of the information about that click, the ad that was clicked, the keyword that triggered the ad, the time of the day, the device, the location. It's basically all tied together with that Google Click ID. So when someone clicks through to your website, that Google Click ID is in the URL. And so most call tracking softwares, the way they work is they capture that piece of information. And then what they do is you'll have your phone number on your website, whatever your phone number is. You'll have a call tracking account where you purchase a couple of call tracking numbers that only you own. And when I say purchase, they're cheap. They're usually a couple dollars a month, for use of the number. So it's not a very expensive proposition. And then you put a piece of code on the website. This is something we do on behalf of our clients generally. Put a piece of code on the website. And so it looks and says, hey, when someone clicks on a Google ad and gets to the website, we know they did that because we can see that Google Click ID in the URL. And when we see that, this piece of code replaces the phone number on the website with a call tracking number that you've purchased specifically for this purpose. So, if you go to your website, just type in the website, you'll see one number. If someone clicks on an ad, they'll see a different number. So next question is, okay, well, how do those calls get back to you? Because you need to get those calls. Well, yes, very much so. These call tracking numbers are forwarding phone numbers. So basically someone calls a number and it just routes the call right to your number. So it doesn't really change the experience of the user at all. The only change is you need to play what they call a whisper if you are going to record the call, because legally you have to tell people you're going to record the call. So you might have like a quick, hey, this call might be recorded for quality and training assurance, that type of thing. And then the call goes directly to where it was going to go anyway, to whatever phone number you've got, whatever phone is picking up on that. But the call tracking script is capturing all the information about the person who came to the website. And so it's able to actually tie that phone call back to that Google Click ID, which then, and this is kind of where offline conversion tracking comes in, which we can talk about in a minute. But long story short, you can import that data back into Google Ads. So what you can end up with is, in your call tracking platform, you can have a list of calls and call recordings of people who have clicked on your Google Ads and called you. In your Google Ads account, you can see which keywords, which ads are turning into phone calls, and you can optimize accordingly. And then if you're like StubGroup, you can take things to another level and you can actually listen to those calls and rate them and provide feedback. So we provide feedback to our clients to say, hey, these are some good calls, or hey, we heard an issue with this call. You might want to talk to the salesperson, that type of thing. And also we identify which ones were relevant. So, you might have wrong numbers come through. You might have someone who got confused and called you, is looking for a different service, so forth and so on. That's not really a lead. We don't want to call that a lead in terms of what we report to our clients, or in terms of what we optimize to in our Google Ads accounts. So our call rating team actually listens to the calls and says, oh, these 5 here today were relevant, these 5 weren't, and then we import information about the 5 relevant into Google Ads to optimize towards in the future. And we don't import information about the 5 that weren't good, because we don't want to get more of those irrelevant phone calls. So this is a really powerful tool, especially for lead generation businesses, any businesses where you have a lot of phone calls coming in and you need to understand where they're coming from and also how are they being dealt with. This is so important. And then on top of that, you can also track calls from, it used to be called the call extension, now it's called the call asset. But basically, when you go on Google and you see a phone number that shows up in the ad itself, even before people click through to the website, we can track those as well. A similar method. It's a little bit easier actually to do than on the website side of things, because you don't need to add code. You just enter your tracking number into the Google Ads platform. But essentially, you can track those as well. So call tracking, very important. If you get calls and you're not tracking them, I highly recommend that you do so. Lastly, like I said, I'm not going to talk much about apps because that's not relevant to probably most people watching this video. So the last thing I'm going to talk about here is offline conversion tracking. So this is the idea where you can pull information from other data sources like your CRM back into Google Ads. So let's talk practical examples. We do this with a lot of our clients. We have a client who gets a lot of leads each day through chat, through phone call, through forms, and generally about half of those leads are valid, good leads, and half of them are not good. Maybe they don't have enough money to purchase what the client's selling. Maybe they're looking for a different type of service. Maybe they filled out a form and then they never respond when the client calls them. Things like that. So we don't want more of those invalid leads. Those are worthless to us. We want more valid leads. But from Google's perspective, if you're only tracking chats, you're only tracking forms, you're only tracking phone calls, Google doesn't know that there's a difference between those two categories of leads. It's just like, hey, I drove 10 chats and 10 form submissions today. Great, let's do the same thing tomorrow. So with offline conversion tracking, what we do is we capture the phone numbers of the people who are calling, and we capture the Google Click IDs that are associated with their clicks to the website. And we are then able to import that information back to Google. Basically say Google, hey, here's a list of the 10 Google Click IDs that were valid to us. This is what I want you, Google, to call a conversion. And this is what I want to get more of. And this is so crucial for a lot of businesses where there are a lot of those, invalid leads coming through, to help teach and inform Google about the patterns that they can see of, oh, these keywords, these searches, these times a day, these devices, these are what seem to be resulting in these positive leads. Let's get more of those and less of these irrelevant leads. So you can do offline conversion tracking manually by uploading spreadsheets. You can automate it by connecting your system to Google's system. Some of the big CRMs, Salesforce, for example, HubSpot, have pre-built integrations between their CRMs and Google Ads. So you can just connect those things and automatically send that data over. But this is kind of how you take things to the next level. And this is how we have helped a lot of lead generation businesses who reach out to us looking for help take things to the next level, because you can only do so much when you're optimizing towards that first initial phone call or first initial chat or form submission. You can do so much more when you go down the line towards that more valuable action that you want to track. So that's kind of a summary of or a 101 of Google Ads conversion tracking. So again, let's just go back through it real quick. You can track things on your website. Usually those things are orders, form submissions, chats, things like that. You can track phone calls, whether that be people calling the phone number in your ads or people clicking through your ads to your website and then calling. You can track actions in your app if you have an app. And you can import data offline back into Google from your CRM, from spreadsheets, etc., to inform Google about what leads have turned into sales, so forth and so on. And that's it. So if you have any questions about Google Ads conversion tracking, if you want to get more into the nuances of, okay, here's what we can track, but how do we actually install the tracking? Tracking code installation is a whole other conversation with tons and tons of nuances, tons and tons of fun things to troubleshoot, something that we spend a lot of time helping our clients with. So feel free to add questions to the comments. We can try to answer those, but those are generally going to be so nuanced that you need to actually work with someone to figure out, why is my code not working the way I think it is. So I hope that's helpful. Until next time, this is John signing off.